It is late February 2026, and I want you to just picture the map of the Big Ten Conference for a second. Just visualize it in your head.
It's a pretty big map now.
Right. It used to be this really tight cluster right in the Midwest, basically a bus ride away from most of these teams. And now
Now it stretches from the Jersey Shore literally all the way to the Santa Monica Pier.
exactly. It's 18 teams, coast to coast. And that is exactly the mission for this deep dive today. We aren't just here to read off the standings and tell you who's winning.
Because that changes every 5 minutes anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We really need to figure out if this massive Super League model is actually working or if it's, completely breaking the math of college basketball.
And looking at the data, it might be breaking the map.
It really might be. We've got a massive stack of source material today to help us sort through this chaos. We are pulling projections from sportsbrackets.net, the Fox Sports Outlook, the ESPN Bubble Watch, and of course the CBS Sports Bracket Preview.
Which is incredibly helpful because the data is doing some very weird things this year.
Weird is an understatement. I mean, I was looking at these Fox Sports projections before we started, and I actually had to double-check the math on it.
The 10 teams stat.
Yes. They have potentially 10 Big Ten teams making the NCAA tournament. 10.
It's staggering.
That is nearly 15% of the entire tournament field coming from one single conference. So my first question to you is just simple. Is that actual undeniable dominance? Or is the algorithm just completely confused by the sheer volume of games these guys are playing?
Well, it's a legitimate question. And honestly, it looks like a glitch in the matrix at first glance.
All right.
Because when you have 18 teams playing a grueling 20-game conference schedule across 4 different time zones, the strength of schedule metrics just go absolutely through the roof for everyone involved.
Because they're always playing somebody highly ranked.
Exactly. Basically, even the mediocre teams in the conference look like giants to the computers because they keep accumulating quality losses against these top-tier programs.
So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. We all say the conference is good, so losing a game in the conference is deemed a quality loss, which just keeps the conference looking good overall.
To an extent, yeah, that's the classic cannibalization argument. But, and I think this is a really big quote, when you actually sit down and watch the games, especially looking at the top of the league, you realize something.
What's that?
The quality is actually terrifying. This isn't just smoke and mirrors at the top. The elite teams are truly elite.
Okay, let's test that quality argument then. Because the CBS Sports Bracket Preview just dropped, and the headline there isn't just that the Big Ten is deep.
No, it's about who is sitting at the very top.
Exactly. It's that Michigan is the projected #1 overall seed.
And deservedly so. They are sitting at a 25-1 record right now.
Which is insane in a 20-game conference slate.
It's unbelievable. And more importantly for the committee, they are #1 in the net rankings.
Okay, pause there for a second. Because we hear net ranking thrown around every single March like confetti.
We really do.
But for the listener who, just wants to win their office pool and doesn't have a master's degree in bracketology, why does the net matter so much more than just looking at the traditional win-loss record?
Think of the net ranking as essentially the quality control metric for the selection committee.
Okay.
It doesn't just care that you won a basketball game. It cares deeply about who you beat, where you played them, and how efficiently you played during that game.
So context is everything.
Precisely. Winning on the road against a top 10 team is absolute gold. Winning at home against a small directional school is, copper at best. And Michigan has just been mining gold all season long.
But going 25-1 in this specific conference, that seems almost mathematically impossible.
It usually is.
Right, because usually in a league this deep, you'd expect this brutal meat grinder effect, where even the best team finishes with 5 or 6 losses just by accident.
Just from the travel alone, honestly. And that is what makes this Michigan team, and honestly the teams right behind them, so distinct this year. They aren't just surviving the cross-country travel. They are absolutely crushing it.
And it's not just one isolated team making a run. If you look at those CBS projections, you have Purdue and Illinois both projected as #2 seeds.
Which is a wall of power right there. And then you have Nebraska.
I was just going to say, we have to talk about Nebraska.
Nebraska is, frankly, the surprise of the decade for me. They are looking like a remarkably solid #3 seed.
I feel like we really need to frame that properly for the listener. Because historically speaking, Nebraska basketball is not exactly where you go to find a top 3 tournament seed.
Not at all. It's football country. But this year on the court, they are an absolute lock. And then you add in Michigan State and Wisconsin, who CBS also has listed securely as locks.
So just doing the quick back of the napkin math here. You've got Michigan, Purdue, Illinois, Nebraska, Michigan State, and Wisconsin. That is 6 teams that are essentially safe before we even hit March.
Correct. So before you even start talking about the bubble, you have this massive, unmovable cluster of elite programs at the top. And they are completely preventing the middle of the pack from coming up for air.
And that exactly where that super conference stat from Fox Sports comes from, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the foundation of it. Fox Sports is projecting 10 teams in the final field of 68. And just to put that in context for you, the SEC is also projected to get 10 teams in, and the Big 12 is currently looking at 8.
Wow. So if you combine just those 3 super conferences, the Big 10, the SEC, and the Big 12,
That's 28 teams.
28 teams, that is almost half of the entire NCAA tournament field coming from just 3 leagues.
They are literally swallowing the bracket whole. And that dominance at the top of the Big 10 creates a massive, massive problem for the teams stuck in the middle.
Because they just get battered every single night.
Exactly. There are absolutely no get-right games anymore. There are no easy nights off. If you aren't playing the #1 overall seed in Michigan, you're turning around and playing a 2 seed like Purdue. Or you're traveling to face a really dangerous Nebraska team.
It creates this intense pressure cooker that I don't think we've ever really seen before in college hoops.
It's unprecedented.
And speaking of that pressure cooker, we have to talk about the teams that are arguably feeling that heat the most right now, the new guys.
Oh, the West Coast editions.
Yeah, because this is the very first real postseason cycle where we are seeing USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington actively trying to survive this Big Ten winter grind. So how is this specific experiment actually holding up?
Honestly, it has been a massive culture shock and a physical shock, too. I think UCLA is basically the perfect case study for this entire dynamic.
The Bruins have just been all over the place this year. I mean, one week they look like a genuine Final Four team, and the very next week they look completely lost on the court.
It is a total roller coaster. They went on this massive hot streak recently, won 5 out of 6 games, and everyone thought, okay, Mick Cronin finally has them figured out. They've adjusted to the time zones. They're good.
Right.
And then they took what ESPN affectionately called the Tour of Michigan.
Oh, man. I saw that in the bubble watch. That did not go well for them at all.
It was brutal. They had to fly all the way into the Midwest, play Michigan, and they just got thumped. Then they stayed in the Midwest, took a bus over to East Lansing to play Michigan State, and got thumped again.
Back-to-back losses like that just completely halt whatever momentum you've built up.
Exactly.
And it's a tough week for anybody. You're dealing with the cross-country travel, the incredibly hostile crowds, the freezing weather, and you're playing 2 of the most physical defenses in the country back-to-back.
It really exposed the gap between the pretty good new additions and the truly established elite tier of the conference. But, and this is exactly why the Big Ten is so incredibly fun to watch this year, just when you think a team is completely dead and buried, they pull off something crazy. Did you happen to catch the end of the Illinois game?
The overtime win. Oh, I absolutely did. I was glued to the TV for that one.
That was a monumental moment for their tournament resume.
It really was. I mean, they are down. They are totally desperate for a signature win against a top 10 ranked Illinois squad. And the way they actually won it, Donovan Dent gets the ball and just goes end to end, coast to coast for a layup to win it at the buzzer.
Yeah, the sources were actually comparing it to the famous Tyus Edney run.
Which is a really deep cut for college basketball fans.
It is. Edney did that exact same thing back in '95 to save UCLA's season in the tournament. But, you know, the comparison is really accurate here.
Yeah, because that single play, that one coast-to-coast sprint, that might literally be the defining difference between UCLA making the NCAA tournament or watching it from their couches in LA.
It's wild that an entire season of work can basically come down to 4 seconds of sprinting down the court.
That's the magic of March, though. So where do they sit right now?
Right now, ESPN has UCLA categorized as a should-be-in team. They've got about an 85% chance of making the field.
But they're definitely still living on the edge.
Oh, absolutely. But they are in a much better spot than their neighbor, USC.
Yeah, let's look at USC.
USC is in a much, much more precarious position today. They are currently sitting in the work-to-do category on the bubble watch.
And what are their odds looking like?
They only have a 25% chance of making the field right now.
Wow. That feels really low for a roster with their level of talent. Only 25%.
It is low, but you have to look at the actual results on the floor. And more specifically, Look at how they are losing these games.
Right.
They blew a 6-point lead with literally a minute left against Oregon. That is a completely heartbreaking loss.
Yeah, that's not a lack of talent.
No, that is a team that is just exhausted.
Blowing a late lead like that, especially against a regional rival late in the season, that is the exact kind of thing that haunts you on Selection Sunday.
It absolutely does. And then you add in their tough losses to Ohio State and Illinois. The main takeaway here is that the travel miles and the incredibly physical style of the Big Ten are just wearing these West Coast teams down to the bone.
The traditional West Coast identity is just getting swallowed up.
Exactly. That faster, more offensive-minded style is being forced to merge into this bruising, physical Big Ten grind. And the reality is not everybody is surviving the merger.
It really does feel like survival of the fittest out there. And I think that brings us perfectly to the Bubble Watch segment. Because if we're saying 10 teams might actually get in, that inherently means there are several teams fighting for their absolute tournament lives right now in late February.
Oh, there are plenty of them sweating right now.
You mentioned the work to do category earlier.
Oh,
Who else is on that list desperately trying to build a resume?
Well, Indiana is the one that stands out immediately to me.
Oh, the Hoosiers. I guarantee you my friends down in Bloomington are not sleeping well this week.
It has been a really rough stretch for them. They were looking completely safe. They were just cruising along, and then they hit a massive slide.
What happened?
They lost to Illinois and Purdue by a combined 49 points.
Wait, 49 points. Over 2 games?
Yes.
That's not just a loss. That is a complete dismantling.
It destroys all of your computer metrics because the committee looks at those 2 games and they ask, can this team actually compete with the best teams in the country? And right now, based on those blowouts, the answer looks like a hard no.
So where does that leave their tournament chances?
That slide dropped them down to a 73% chance. They are still likely in the field, but they absolutely need to pick up wins against Northwestern or Minnesota to feel safe. You just cannot limp into Selection Sunday after getting blown off the floor by your conference rivals.
Yeah, the recency bias is real with the committee. And then there is Ohio State. They might be the most confusing team in the entire country.
They are a literal math problem that nobody knows how to solve. They really raise this fascinating question about how we even evaluate teams in this new super conference era.
How so?
Well, Ohio State ranks really well in all the predictive metrics. They're firmly in the top 40. And usually, if you are a top 40 team in the metrics, you can book your ticket. You're safe.
Right. Computers love them.
But here is the single stat that is absolutely killing their resume. They are 0-9 against quad 1 opponents.
Wait, 0-9. So they haven't beaten a single elite team the entire year.
Not one. They beat the bad teams comfortably. They beat the mediocre teams. But every single time they step up in weight class to fight a heavyweight, they lose.
See, as a fan watching that is just maddening. It's like being the undisputed world champion of the minor leagues.
That's a great way to put it. And the selection committee absolutely hates that specific profile. They call it a hollow resume. You have really good-looking numbers on paper, but who did you actually beat on the court?
Nobody of substance?
Mm-hmm.
So they're basically just flipping a coin for their tournament lives every time they play right now.
Essentially, yes. They have literally been alternating wins and losses for 22 straight games.
You're kidding.
No, win one, lose one, win one, lose one. They need a signature win so desperately right now, or they might end up being the highest rated team in the metrics to get left out of the bracket entirely.
Consistency is key, even if it's being consistently inconsistent, I guess. What about Iowa? Because I saw they had a really nice little run going recently.
Iowa is just another casualty of the brutal 18-team schedule. They had this great 6-game win streak. They looked awesome. Everyone's buying their stock.
Right.
And then they immediately lost 3 of their next 4 games. And the biggest problem for them is that they currently have the 3rd hardest remaining schedule in the entire Big Ten.
So they have to run through an absolute gauntlet just to stay alive on the bubble.
Exactly. And this really highlights the major downside of the 18-team league that we touched on earlier.
The cannibalization.
Yes. You can be a genuinely good basketball team like Iowa or like Ohio State, but you might miss the NCAA tournament simply because you are forced to play way too many other good teams and you just accumulate too many losses.
It's cannibalization happening in real time.
It is. In a smaller traditional league, you usually get a few weeks where you play the bottom feeders, you catch your breath, and you pad your stats a bit.
Right.
But in the Big Ten this year, those easy weeks just do not exist.
So all of this drama, all this cannibalization across the regular season, it all leads us to Chicago.
The United Center.
March 10th through the 15th, the TIAA Big Ten tournament. And I just have to imagine when you map out 18 teams, the physical bracket has to look like an eye chart.
It is a total monster of a bracket. They had to completely change the format this year.
Which means we are now getting Tuesday games.
We do. For the very first time, seeds 15 through 18 have to play their first-round matchups on Tuesday.
Tuesday afternoon college basketball. Which, by the way, creates a totally new hurdle for the casual fan at home, because you can't just flip on your TV and find these early games.
No, you really can't. The Tuesday and Wednesday games are exclusively streaming on Peacock.
So make sure your subscription is active, folks. If you want to see if Rutgers or Washington can pull off some crazy miracle run, you absolutely need the app.
It's just the reality of modern media rights deals. But the good news is, once we get to the weekend for the semifinals and the finals, the coverage shifts back to traditional television on BTN and CBS.
Good to know. But let's actually talk about that miracle run scenario for a second.
Oh.
If you were one of those bottom-tier teams playing on a Tuesday, do you even realize what you have to do to win the automatic bid?
It's daunting.
You have to win a lot of basketball games.
You have to win 6 games in 6 days.
6 games in 6 days. Has that ever even happened in the history of the sport?
Statistically speaking, it is nearly impossible. I mean, UConn famously won 5 games in 5 days in the Big East tournament back in the day.
Kemba Walker, right.
Exactly, but 6 games in this modern 18-team league. With the sheer physicality of Big Ten defenses, by Thursday, your legs are completely gone. And by Friday, you are just running on pure fumes.
So realistically, if you are landing in that 15 to 18 seed range, you're basically just showing up and playing for pride.
Precisely. And that is exactly why securing one of the top 4 seeds in the regular season is so incredibly crucial. We talked about Michigan, Purdue, Illinois, Nebraska. Getting that top 4 double bye means you don't even have to put your jersey on until Friday.
That is a massive advantage.
It's the most valuable asset in the sport right now because while everyone else is just bludgeoning each other on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, the top seeds are resting at the hotel, icing their knees, and watching the carnage on Peacock like the rest of us.
So, expert advice here.
Yeah.
When I am sitting down and filling out my Big Ten tournament bracket, do I even bother looking at the bottom half of the page?
Honestly, I wouldn't. Focus all your picks on the top 4 seeds. History tells us, and just basic human physiology tells us, that the teams playing early in the week simply do not have the legs to finish the job on Sunday afternoon.
Okay, so we survive the chaos in Chicago. We get through the conference gauntlet. And then comes the absolute best day of the sports year.
Selection Sunday.
Yes, March 15th, 2026, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS.
When the final field of 68 is officially revealed.
But the road to the championship doesn't actually start with the main bracket for everybody.
Yeah.
We have to talk about Dayton, the first 4.
Dayton is going to be exceptionally huge for the Big Ten this year.
Why is that? Because of the sheer volume of teams.
Exactly. Because of all those bubble teams we were just talking about. Your UCLAs, your Ohio States, maybe even Indiana if they stumble down the stretch. With so many Big Ten teams just hovering right there on that last 4 in line, the conference is highly likely to have a major presence in Dayton on March 17th and 18th.
Now, usually fans groan when they see their team's name pop up in the first 4. It really feels like a penalty, right? Like, oh man, we aren't really in a real tournament yet.
It definitely feels that way emotionally, but fans really need to reframe that kind of thinking.
How so?
Because in 12 of the last 14 NCAA tournaments, a team that played in the first 4 has advanced to the round of 32. It is absolutely not a death sentence.
Well, it's almost like a high-stakes warm-up game.
It can be a massive momentum builder.
Yeah.
Just look at UCLA's incredible run back in 2021. They started out in the first 4 in Dayton, they barely squeaked into the field, and they rode that momentum all the way to the Final 4.
Oh, that's right.
Sometimes just getting that first high-pressure win out of the way before the main bracket even starts, it allows your guys to find their rhythm on the court while all the higher seeds are still sitting around feeling nervous.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
So if you see the Buckeyes or the Bruins popping up on the screen for Dayton, don't panic.
Do not panic. Just clear your schedule for Tuesday and Wednesday night.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, the ultimate goal is to get to the very end of the road. And I have to point out the beautiful irony of this season.
The location.
Yes. We have spent all year expanding out to the West Coast. We have teams from Los Angeles and Seattle flying thousands of miles across the country every week. But where is the national championship game actually being played this year?
It is right back in the absolute heart of the Midwest. Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, April 4th and 6th.
It just feels perfectly appropriate, doesn't it? The biggest, most sprawling Big Ten season ever still ends right in Indy.
It really does. And Lucas Oil is such a massive, iconic venue for this. It's the fourth time they've hosted the Final Four since 2010. I think it really cements the fact that despite all the national expansion, despite all this shiny new coast-to-coast branding, the true gravitational center of college basketball, at least for this conference, is still firmly planted right there in Indiana.
So let's look into the crystal ball as we wrap this up. We've got the data, we've got the brackets from sportsbrackets.net. What are the actual odds telling us right now? Who is going to be the one cutting down the nets in Indy?
The futures market is actually very telling right now. Michigan, which is completely consistent with their projected #1 overall seed, is the clear favorite to win it all. They are sitting at plus 390.
Plus 390. That is incredibly short odds for a tournament that is famously chaotic. That shows a lot of confidence from Vegas.
It really does. It shows just how much genuine respect the odds makers have for what Michigan has accomplished this season. They clearly believe this specific team is built different.
But they aren't the only ones on the board.
No, there are definitely other top contenders. You have Arizona checking in at plus 700. You've got UConn with all that defending champion pedigree sitting at plus 1,000. And Iowa State is also right there at plus 1,000.
Okay, but what about a dark horse? Someone with a little more value for the listener looking for a sleeper pick.
Well, if we're looking outside the conference at the SEC, Vanderbilt is being mentioned a lot as a rising dark horse. They've been very quietly climbing the polls all year.
Okay.
But if we want to stick strictly to the Big Ten, you really need to keep an eye on Illinois or Purdue. Both of them are currently sitting at plus 1,200.
Plus 1,200 feels like incredible value for teams that we just said are projected as #2 seeds.
Absolutely it is. Think about their profiles. These are deep, battle-tested, blue blood programs. They have survived this 18-team gauntlet. If Michigan happens to stumble in the Sweet 16, Purdue or Illinois are positioned right there to pick up the slack and make a run to Indy.
All right, so before we go, give me your final provocative thought on all this. We've dissected the expansion, the bubble teams, the odds. When the listener downloads that bracket from sportsbrackets.net and they're just staring at it, trying to pick a champion, what is the one big thing sticking in your brain right now?
For me, it all comes back to the central paradox of this massive expansion.
The paradox of size.
Yes. We are sitting here celebrating the fact that the Big Ten might legitimately send 10 teams to the NCAA tournament. On paper, it looks like total national dominance. Strength in numbers, right?
Sure. The more tickets you buy for the lottery, the better your chances of winning.
Exactly. But historically speaking, the Big Ten has had a massive, highly publicized drought when it comes to actually winning the national championship game. It has been a long, very painful drought for the conference.
Please don't remind me. It has been decades at this point.
So the real lingering question for me is this. Does having 10 teams in the field actually increase your mathematical odds of finally getting a title just by sheer brute force? Or does this punishing 18-team regular season grind, the flights to LA, the physical defensive battles, the constant intra-conference cannibalization, does it just leave these teams way too exhausted to win 6 more games in March?
Wow. That is the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Is the super conference model actually actively bad for winning national titles? We are about to find out in real time, because if you send 10 teams to the dance and none of them make it to the Final Four in Indy, that narrative is going to get very loud very quickly. We're going to have a really long, really loud off-season conversation about whether bigger is actually better.
Oh, the takes on sports talk radio will be absolutely scorching hot if that happens. I can hear them already. Well, listeners, your homework for this week is very clear. Head over to sportsbrackets.net. You can download the full printable brackets. They've got them in PDF, in Excel, whatever format you need to plot out all this madness.
And seriously, start paying attention to those Tuesday games in Chicago. The postseason starts earlier than you think.
It really does. Selection Sunday is just around the corner on March 15th. And in a league this massive, the only absolute certainty is chaos. See you in the bracket.